This video is a discussion of the use of the popular song Goodnight Sweetheart in Star Trek: The City on the Edge of Forever. Alright, now, the original recording is a slow foxtrot. It even says so on the label. Tempo is a little south of 60 beats per minute, conveying a more relaxed but stately feel. The conductor would count it in cut time, as opposed to 4/4 common time. Like this, check this out.
Good night, sweetheart. All my prayers are for you. Good night, sweetheart. I'll be watching on you. Tears and the parting may make us forlorn.
Okay, you see the difference? Now, let's look at a side-by-side lineup of 3 tempo renderings of this same tune. A, let's call it the noble tempo. This is what we just heard, as a foxtrot in cut time. Now, B, the Steiner tempo. The arrangement renders the piece at a more lively pace, still in cut time, but around 72 beats per minute, which seems to better convey a stroll along a big city street versus a foxtrot in a ballroom. Imagine the scene with the original tempo.
Good night, sweetheart. All my prayers are for you. Good night, sweetheart. I'll be watching on you. Tears and the parting may make us forlorn. But
I don't know. That just doesn't work. It's very perceptive of Steiner to catch this huge detail. Here's the real clip. See if you can tell the difference.
Good night, sweetheart. Still my love will guide you. Dreams.
Why does Spock call you Captain? Were you in the war together?
We served together.
And you, don't want to talk about it? Why? Did you do something wrong? Are you afraid of something? Whatever it is, let me help.
So this brings us to C, staircase tempo. I call it that because the dramatic adaptation of the song's melody and rhythm is first heard in the staircase of the flop where Kirk and Spock are staying, just a floor below Edith's place. The tempo is again slower for dramatic effect, roughly the same as the foxtrot. But I surmise it would have to be scored and conducted in 4/4 time so the conductor could get every ounce from each pulse. All right, the cues. Kirk walks Edith to her door one evening, where she tells him they speak the same language. It is during this exchange that the first Goodnight Sweetheart cue is played. See if you recognize it, but first, let's do a little practice, okay? Don't feel silly, just do this with me. It's clapping rhythm. Good night, sweetheart. Do it. Good night, sweetheart. And then, though I'm not beside you. With me? Though I'm not beside you. Okay, keep that in mind. Check out the cue. Here we go.
Why? What is so funny about man reaching for the moon?
How do you know?
I just know, that's all. I feel it. And more, I think that one day they're going to take all the money that they spend now on war and death.
And make them spend it on life.
Yes. You see the same things that I do. We speak the same language.
but very safe.
Okay, that scene runs 42 seconds, but the music is only 8 bars at a larghetto tempo. To establish the tension in the romantic versus tragic situation, Steiner starts this passage with lovely soft strings, but the melody is buried in a G minor half-diminished 7th chord,
Huh?
so that the ear can't easily detect it, but we for sure recognize the 4-note motif, good night, sweetheart, right? And then the second bar reflects the lyric, though I'm not beside you, and is played by the woodwinds, and then recapped by the strings. So it's a 3-bar phrase in Steiner's cue. The whole thing then repeats a half step lower, but an octave higher.
You got that? What?
An F sharp half diminished 7th. And then the cue concludes the last 2 bars on a heavy dirge-like quoting of good night, sweetheart, with the cello working contrary motion to everything else. So I got crazy. I sat down with Muse Score on my computer and just charted out what I hear in here. And I want to show you that clip. Check my work. Now, in a later scene, the same cue is heard again, only interrupted by a foreboding low brass insert when Edith stumbles on the stairs and Jim is there to catch her. The third and final will not occur until the climax, when the tragedy occurs and Kirk blocks McCoy from saving Edith. You probably know the scene as well as I do. She must find out how these 3 men know each other so well, and she sets out across the busy street. They reuse a panic suspense score by Alexander Courage from the Naked Time Rec Room scene. Remember this?
Hey, Joey, put the knife down. Don't be a fool, Joey. You're just getting sweat about it. Let go. Sweat about nothing, Joey. Let me have the knife. Leave me go. Joey, don't be a fool. Joey. Joey, give me the knife.
Okay, same music in the ending of The City on the Edge Forever.
No, Jim.
Tire screeching, the crescendo, the scream, the silence, then the agony. How do you score agony for music? This is pain on an emotional level. When we're in pain, we scream, we cry out. No one screams in a low voice. No, it's an involuntary high voice, because maybe these sounds are more clearly heard by someone else. A cry for help. I call this final cue, "He knows, Doctor. He knows." That's Spock's line. Musically, we go to the instruments that can produce that shrill high pitch. In this case, a high E, way up here. A piccolo would do nicely, with a flute an octave below to fill it out. First violin an octave below that. 3 octaves on the scream. But there's more. There's a ramp up to a scream. You're not just immediately at the highest pitch. So there's a couple of grace notes in front of our scream pitch. Now, what else do we have? Well, agony is the extreme of discomfort. Your world is out of control. Mind is racing. Heart is pounding. Maybe this is why music has perfect intervals and imperfect intervals. The tone below the scream is a diminished fifth slower on a B flat, the so-called tritone, and it warbles a half step down, then up, then down again, resolving on, what was that chord again? The half diminished seventh chord from the staircase cue. Remember that? Well, your ear would remember it. It's familiar territory, and it's how we resign ourselves to what has just happened. While this was considered new music, only episodes with new original music gave credit for the composer. In this case, credit for additional music went to Alexander Courage, whose reused scores comprised most of the music in the episode, as we saw earlier. So Steiner's brilliant work on Goodnight Sweetheart went uncredited, but to me, these remain the most memorable musical moments of the show.